like I said, 3 or more events and you're able to do that, it's pretty darn cool. So Emily Boehner in the high jump, the javelin, and the long jump, qualifying in those 3 events. You've got Kendall Ballman in the javelin, who, by the way, won at regionals. Girls 4x100 qualifying as well. Cam Gurley is one of the more unique athletes. She's one of, I think, just one of 2. I think she's one of possibly 3. Cameron Gurley is qualified in 4 different events, all on her own, not counting a relay. So she made it in the 100 hurdles, the 100 dash, the 200 dash, and the 300 hurdles for Cameron Gurley. So that is pretty darn impressive for that. So 4 events for that. And then you've got girls 4x8. Michael Hafner in the mile and 2 mile. Madison Meyer in the 200. Tegan Lindemann in the 3200. Braxton Monk in the 110 and 300s. The boys 4x8. Emma Schamberger in the triple jump. Harper Mock in the triple jump. Jalen Hurl in the shot put and discus. And Duncan Bell in the javelin. 23 events qualifying for Hoxie at the state track meet here this coming week. Quinter boys and girls, 18 events qualified in, which was very impressive. They were Addie Hargett in javelin qualifying, Camden Polifka, another one of these multi-event qualifiers in 3 of them. Camden going in the 110 hurdles, the 300 hurdles, and the javelin. He finished 3rd in the 110s last year. 6th in the finals, I should say. But he's going in 3 events this year. Hans Deaton qualifying in the mile for the 2nd consecutive year. He's also going in the 800. Kendrick Selensky running in the mile and 2 miles. Elliot Churchwell in the 2 miles. So you have 2 2-mile qualifiers and 2-mile qualifiers for Quinter. No surprise. They're a phenomenal distance running school and cross-country juggernaut. Camden Bridges in the boys discus, the girls 4x8 and the boys 4x8 all qualifying as well. And still, boys 4x4 and girls 4x4, Colt Worth in the pole vault, Braylon Blackwell in the 400, and Shaylee Ballman in the 100 and 300 hurdles, all qualifying for Quinter. Like I said, a ton of qualifiers for Quinter, Hoxie, particularly Oakley and Colby, all with double-digit qualifiers in events. Wallace County also in double digits with 12 qualifiers. The Wildcats will send Callie Richardson for the pole vault, Pierce Richardson in the pole vault, high jump, and also in the trying to think. That was the pole. Sorry, the pole vault and the high jump. He went in 2 events. Kyler Kuhlman going in 2 events, the 100 hurdles and the high jump. Kemper Benish going in the 400 and the long jump. Mackenzie Wolf in the shot and the discus. Once again, Wolf coming off a school record performance in regionals. And Lila Pierce going in the discus as well. And then relays 4x4 boys and 4x1 boys and 4x4 boys. I got to get this right. 4x4 boys and the 4x1 girls qualifying there for Wallace County. And then Rollins County qualified in 10 events, led by Ryan Schromick. I believe he's in 4 events. I think he's in the 4x1. He qualified in the long jump, the 200, and the 100 did Ryan Schromick. Dorian Colwell in the 100 and the 200. Pacey Juniman in the 100 hurdles and high jump. Sammy Mishek in the pole vault, and Katie Shively in the discus. And then St. Francis sending 6 events. Breck Lohr in the 800. Avery Jensen, who qualified in 3 events, the 300 hurdles, the 100-meter hurdles, and the triple jump. Delaney Myers in the javelin, and Eden Britson in the 200. Golden Plains qualifying 6 events. Elizabeth Weiner in the mile and the 2 mile. Dylan Wark in the 1600 in the mile, otherwise known as the mile. And then a cool story, Brenlin and Josh Rath, brother and sister, qualifying in the jumps. Brenlin going in the triple jump and the long jump. Josh in the triple jump. So both brother and sister will be triple jumping at the same state track meet. Pretty cool story there. Wheatley Grinnell will send 3 events. Daniel Mason in the javelin. And then you have Wheatland Grinnell's own Olivia Ball qualifying for the 2nd consecutive year in both the high jump and the long jump. Shylins have 3 events going. John Sabatka, after finishing 13th last year, he is going back in the javelin this year. Harley McPherson going in the 100, and Abigail Wright in the high jump. Another great story is down in Weston, where Carson Wright qualified in 3 events. Last year, he was in the 100 and the 400. This year, he qualifies in both the 100 and the 400 again, as well as the 200. By the way, he finished first in the 200, 400 at regionals, did Carson Wright. And then Decatur Community, 7 events qualified. Gage Willoughby in the 100-meter dash and the triple jump. Jessie Hendrickson in the 200. Tate Osmeyer in the 110 hurdles. The boys 4x1 relay. Lauren May in the pole vault and Elsie Larson in the pole vault as well for Decatur Community. Greeley County will send Jalen Brandel in the mile and the 2-mile. Lincoln Schaefer in the 300 hurdles. Rowdy Grubb in the pole vault and Santiago Mora in the pole vault. And last, but certainly not least, the lone qualifier representing Brewster, Nathaniel Peterson, will be running in the 800. And those are the 131 different events that qualified for the state track meet from our listening area here for the next couple of days. So once again, I apologize for all those ones that I missed on Friday, but I don't know what else you could do. I mean, unless you're going to sit down and compare times and things like that. You kind of have to just wait until all the official times are put out there and you can see. But congratulations to all the area athletes and the very best of luck competing in the Acacia State Track and Field Meet, which again is going on right now. Like I said, there's lots of events happening at this point in time, particularly field events. And I did get my question answered by a picture I saw. I was curious looking at the new design of the track meet there in Wichita. I was curious, so why is there so much room in between the track and the grandstands? And the question was finally answered for me because I was like, why is there so much space between the track and the grandstands? Well, the reason is that's where they're letting the kids put the tents up for their teams, where the teams can sit underneath their tents. So that makes a whole lot more sense. But I admit I was confused for a while there, but it makes sense when they get the tents up. That does make more sense. All right, we're right at the bottom of the hour, 7:30 Mountain Time, 8:30 Central Time. We're going to take a break. We're going to change gears when we get back. We're going to talk some college baseball with our good friend Eric Sorensen from D1 Baseball. Regional play gets underway here later this morning. And like I said, it's got a very local flavor to it this year with Kansas and Kansas State both in there and Nebraska. We'll talk with him next about all that. This is the Morning Blitz.
Looking for insurance that actually puts you first? At the insurance agency in downtown Goodland, we're independent, which means we work for you. Whether it's auto, home, crop, or business, we shop top carriers to get you the best coverage at the best price. No pushy sales, just honest advice from people who live right here in your community. Give us a call today at 785-899-5011 or stop by 1020 Main in Goodland and let's get you covered. The Insurance Agency. Insurance the way it should be.
It's time for a check of the markets with the Anderson Trade Group on the Kansas Farm and Ranch Radio Network.
Good morning, this is Kate Thompson with the Anderson Trade Group. Today is Friday, May 30th. On the overnight last night, July corn higher 3/4 cents at 4.47 3/4. September down a quarter at 4.27. December down a half cent to 4.40 3/4. March down 3/4 at 4.55 1/2. July soybeans down 4 3/4 at 10.47. August down 6 at 10.42 1/2. September down 6 1/4 at 10.23 3/4. November beans down 5 1/4 at 10.32. Chicago wheat, the July contract lower half cent at 5.33 1/2. September down a half at 5.48 1/4. December down a quarter at 5.71 1/4. March Chicago wheat unchanged at 5.92 1/4. Kansas City wheat, July contract higher 1/4 cent to 5.32. September up a quarter at 5.46. December up 3/4 at 5.68 1/4. March hard wheat down a quarter at 5.86 1/2. On the stock market this morning, the Dow down $116 at 42,153. The S&P down 21 at 5,901. The Nasdaq down 61, 21,347. Gold lower at $14 now at 3,329. Crude oil down 58 cents a barrel at $60.36. If you have any questions about marketing grain or would like to talk about risk management options, give our Colorado office a call, John Hankey or John Stiles at 970-744-4484, or in our Kansas City office, myself, Tom Pluto, Tiers Law, or Tyler Ghosh at 3000.
The Anderson Trade Group, proud market partners with Kansas Farm and Ranch Radio. Find out more at andersongrain.com. The risk of loss through trading futures and or options is substantial, and each investor and or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance, whether actual or indicated, is not indicative of future results. The Anderson Trade Group has no guarantee that the advice given will result in profitable trades. Bugs can wreak havoc on post-harvest stored grains. A strong control plan helps stop insects before they start. At Central Life Sciences, we believe in making every kernel count towards your profits. That's why Gravista Insecticide, a grain protectant, features a synergized insecticide with an insect growth regulator, now available in a convenient quart size, designed for empty bin treatments to help you store smart and make every kernel count. Contact Maya Butler at bugfreegrains.com to learn more.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, and cleaner American fuel. This message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
You're listening to the High Plains only local sports talk show.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
The Morning Blitz.
F&B Bank text line at 785-899-2220. Texter says, talking about the state track meet qualifier Carson Wright out of Weston. He's just a sophomore. Yes, I did know that. There are some unbelievable athletes out here for sure. And he's another one of those great multi-sport athletes is Carson Wright there at Weston. So, like I said, state track meet officially underway. 131 events will be competing at some point in time over the course over the next 2 days. And like I said, they should have some beautiful weather and hopefully some really good fast times and great results because of that. Let's change gears. Like I mentioned, today, a very busy day in the college baseball world as regional play begins with, like I said, it's got a very local flavor this year as you've got Kansas with coming off their best season ever in Kansas baseball history. You've got Kansas State making back to the NCAA tournament for the second consecutive year. Nebraska in the same boat, back for the second consecutive year. And our good friend Eric Sorensen from D1 Baseball, kind enough to join us now on the Hoover Lumber Ace Hardware Hotline. Eric, how's it going today? How excited are you for the regional round to get underway?
Yeah, this is thanks for having me on, Ross. But this is always kind of the more fun weekend of the postseason, I think, just because it's kind of like the NCAA basketball tournament. The first weekend is where you usually see a lot of the upsets happen. Things kind of shake out a little bit more in the weeks after that. But yeah, this is going to be kind of fun. I think this is always kind of the good where you see more of the David beating the Goliaths, and you see teams that maybe you didn't think were as good as they are, and then they come back and pull an upset or two or play better than you expect and move on. So we'll see. This is the funnest weekend of the season, I think.
Well, I know one thing that stands out to a lot of the people in this area, at least it stood out to me, is the amount of teams represented within kind of the 500-mile radius, if you would. From kind of where we are. You've got KU, Kansas State, Nebraska, Creighton, Oklahoma State, heck, even Oklahoma. I mean, the Midwest really got represented well, I feel like, for the first time in a long time in this college baseball tournament.
Yeah, I tell you what, Ross, I went on the Big 12, went to the Big 12 studio, they call it. It's a studio show that they do, and they were asking me about kind of what my first reaction about the Big 12 and what their draw was. And I said, well, look, the biggest thing is that the Big 12 has 8 teams in it this year, including both of the ones in Kansas where you are and Oklahoma State. And I just kind of said, if Oklahoma and Texas were still in the Big 12, does that mean they would have gotten 10 teams in this year? That would have been really interesting. But I thought the teams in your area, every one of the teams in your area, except maybe Wichita State, had just really good seasons. And I look forward to seeing how they do in the NCAA tournament. The biggest one has to be with KU, the job that Dan Fitzgerald has done there, a guy I like a lot. And I'm excited to see what he's got for the program. Even if they go out in 2 this weekend, it's still been such a good year for them. And I look forward to how he handles this program moving forward.
Well, there's no doubt that they certainly drew a very tough regional going to Fayetteville, and with Creighton being there as well. That's going to be one of the more tougher regionals, one would think, right?
Yeah, in fact, I was my Blue Jays going up against having to face Kansas and maybe Arkansas to get out of that. I will say this though, Ross, and I've kind of said this a couple times on different various radio shows that, Arkansas's got a great atmosphere. They're probably going to have more fans there than any other regional this year. But the thing about Arkansas is, in recent history, they've shown that they can be beaten on their home field. They've shown to have a knack of kind of crapping out in the postseason. Remember that 2001 season, they were the number one team for 9 or 10 straight weeks. And Nebraska almost went in there and beat them, eliminated them in the regionals. And then NC State the next weekend went to Fayetteville and beat them 2 out of 3. So went to Omaha. So they have, and that's just one example. They've had a couple of seasons where they've hosted regionals and, come up snake eyes. So I kind of like, in a way, the way where Kansas and Creighton, my Blue Jays are too. I just like their draw. I don't think it's impossible to beat Arkansas, even though they are really, really good this year.
Let's stay on Kansas here, Eric. What about them do you think gives them a chance of advancing out of this regional round? What really is their shining thing that could help them?
Yeah, I just think the revamped batting order. They got a couple of guys that were playing Division II last year, Brady Bollinger and Jackson Hauge. And those guys they acclimated to Division I baseball unbelievably. They've hit 16 and 19 home runs respectively. I think their offense it's not a huge offense. I mean, they hit, 290 as a team. That's nothing off the charts, but they can get back in any game with one swing. And of course, the pitching is definitely much improved. Their ERA is sitting right at 5, but I think their pitching is the kind of the difference maker this year, as opposed to when they came up short of the NCAA tournament last year. They got some guys, they got some arms, and they got a closer, Alex Breckheimer, who I saw in the Big 12 tournament. He's got 7 or 8 saves on the season. So I just think that their pitching, and just the fact that they've got some big bashers that can get them back into games really quickly, because that Arkansas, that Baum Stadium field, it plays like a bandbox there at this time of year, where it's hot and muggy and the ball just flies out of there. So I think that gives them those two things. I think give them a puncher's chance in this regional.
Eric Sorensen, our guest from D1 Baseball, here joining us on the Hoover Lumber Ace Hardware Hotline. Regional play gets underway later today. Kansas State's on the road down in Austin, taking on Texas. The Wildcats, I don't know about you, I guess I wasn't surprised, but I visited with some people who cover the Cats La Costa. They were more surprised that the Wildcats were one of the last 4 in. Where did you stand on that thought?
Yeah, I was surprised they were that down that far a little bit too, because their I almost said their ERA, their RPI rather was number 37 is where it sits right now. They don't have a very sexy overall record, 31-24, but they played a really tough schedule, including going up to Northeastern to play the Huskies 2 games in a midweek a couple weeks back. But I was surprised they were one of the last 4 in. I really thought they were in comfortably, and as it turns out, they weren't. It would have been a shock if they didn't make it for some reason, too. That would have been a real double whammy to Coach Hughes, who 2 years ago was really railing on the selection committee for not including them. And I thought he had a legit argument in that case. But yeah, I was a little surprised they were that far down. And of course, now they're going to have to beat a Texas team on their home field twice, more than likely, unless they get a little help from UTSA or Houston Christian for crying out loud. But it's going to be tough to do. Texas is a tough team to beat at home, and just a really deep team, deep staff, and they hit the ball a little bit better this year too. So they got a pretty tough draw. I think that UTSA team is probably a little underrated. If you ask me, their RPI actually for a team from the American Conference is at number 25. It was up a little higher than that, up prior to last week's conference tournament week too. So yeah, tough draw for K-State. Not saying they can't do it. Pete Hughes and company are used to playing in the postseason now, so this will be an interesting one for them.
How impressive has this year been from your perspective when you look at Kansas State, based upon the fact that they made all the way to a Supers last year? and then pretty much had to start over with a new team to an extent this year and still making to the postseason again in what can be a difficult Big 12 conference.
I thought this was one of Pete's better jobs that he did this year. I mean, early in the year, they jumped on my radar right away when they went to that to Globe Life Field and beat Arkansas, Michigan, and TCU, back to back to back. That was really something. Then the next game they played was against LSU, and they lost in 10 innings. So this was a team from early on. Yeah, you're right. They had a lot of guys to replace, a lot of new names that I didn't recognize, and they've continued where they left off last season. In fact, it had slipped my mind that I forgot they made the Super Regionals last year. That was a hell of an accomplishment. But this was a team that they started playing well from the get-go and got on my radar right away. Now they had they scuffled a little bit there in the middle of the season. Getting swept by Kansas was kind of tough. A rival, losing like that it really had to bum them out. But they kept their nose to the grindstone. And I only got to see them play once in the Big 12 tournament. Houston took care of them pretty easily. But I still think this got to be his best. Coach Hughes has got to be his best job he's done so far in Manhattan.
Eric Sorensen, continue our guest here on the Hoover Lumber Ace Hardware Hotline from D1 Baseball. Probably one of the bigger surprises in our region was Nebraska. I keep going back to our conversation last time I visited. You said, some things about these teams in the Midwest, you just got to let them wait till they get May where it gets warmed up and they can warm up and then they play. I kept thinking about that all throughout kind of the Big Ten tournament where Nebraska used a break of all breaks, a guy dropping a ball in right field and then advancing, winning 4 straight after that to put themselves in this position for the second straight year. Like you said, I mean, what is it about Will Bolt, in your opinion, to put his team in the best position to win, especially in games when their backs are clearly against the wall late in the season?
Yeah, I was really glad to see them kind of turn their season around in the past week or so. And because, they had a lot of expectations. I think they just kind of crumbled underneath them, being preseason number 24 in D1 Baseball's rankings. And it was weird because they got off to such a good start. They played Vanderbilt, beat them. And then the next day, I happened to be in Arizona the next day where they beat San Diego State 13-0. And so I kept thinking, oh, well, here we go. They're living up to their billing. And then they just didn't. But I think what Coach Bolt's team did this past week is really remarkable, because you got to think about, they played Michigan State with Joe Zwierda, their All-American pitcher. They were able to beat him. Then they played Oregon, who, they're a national seed. They're a top 16, and they beat Grayson Grinsell, their ace. To win those 2 games was really big. Beat a good Penn State team, and then beat UCLA obviously for the title. That was really clutch because they wouldn't have made the NCAA tournament without winning the Big Ten, and because their RPI is still up in the 50 range. So it's really good to see. I was really kind of glad they got through and were able to turn their season around on a dime, really, because this is when they needed to win, and they got the wins that they needed. So interesting to see. Now they're going to have to face Oklahoma, and Kyson Witherspoon, their ace, All-American ace. They got another big pitcher coming at them this weekend. So that'll be interesting. See if they handle it well. Again, they've faced some of the best in the country just in this past week. So I don't think they're going to shy away from facing Mr. Witherspoon and company. I think this will be a really interesting Nebraska-Oklahoma game.
Well, it certainly will be. There's people regionally and nationally who are thinking that maybe because this hot streak, Nebraska could win this Chapel Hill Regional. I don't know if I'm going that far, but there are some people who think that there's a shot. And heck, I don't know if you've seen, but the pitching matchup for that first game, they're not even throwing their big right-hander Azoya. I think they're going with his brother, who's going to throw, I think.
You're right. I did hear that. I forgot it. Malachi Witherspoon. I did hear that early this morning. I'd forgotten about that. So, that's a gamble. I mean, you figure a twin brother's going to be able to pitch just as well as his brother, right? But, but I will tell you this, Ross. When the pairings came out, I really didn't like Nebraska's draw. I love that they made it in, but, man, they got a tough assignment because, after they play Oklahoma, they're eventually going to have to get through Oklahoma and through North Carolina. And North Carolina is one of my sexy picks to be in Omaha, maybe even for the second weekend there. So even though they got in, man, they do not. And even if it's not Kyson Witherspoon they're going up against, it's going to be a tough draw for them to get through.
Yeah, no doubt. Once again, our friend here, Eric Sorensen, joining us on the Morning Blitz here on this Friday. What regional stood out to you when you saw them come together across the entire board? What regional really stood out to you that had piqued your interest for whatever reason it may be?
Yeah, I tell you, Ross, the two Oregon regionals I actually kind of thought were the two toughest, just because TCU, another Big 12 team I saw this past week, they were number 11. They were on number 17, I think, in the RPI. They were they deserved, or at least had an argument. Let me put it this: at least had an argument to deserve a home regional, and they didn't get it. And they're going to be probably one of the better 2 seeds out there. So them going up there to Oregon State and USC joining them. USC is a tough team, a lot of moxie. They've had a lot of injuries, but they've still marched on this year. So I thought that was pretty tough. And after seeing Arizona, and again, this might be a little bit biased, but I was there to see Arizona win the Big 12 tournament title, and they got sent to Oregon, old Pac-12 rivals. So that's going to be tough. And I think Cal Poly, the 3 seed there, is really underrated. That's a team that's not a lot of people know stuff about because they're up there on the Central Coast, just kind of wallowing in anonymity, but they're a really good team. And one more I'll tell you about, though, is Ole Miss at home, or they had a home regional, but they get number 2. Their number 2 seed is Georgia Tech, who won the ACC but didn't get a home regional. So that was a little weird. I think they also have a little chip on their shoulder about that. And Danny Hall, their head coach, is retiring this year, so I think they're going to want to send him out on a good note. So I thought those 3 were probably the toughest regionals when the pairings came out.
You know, there seems to be a lot, and I'm sure this happens every year, but there always is that bickering for the host seed in the regionals. And this year, like you said, Georgia Tech and TCU are probably the ones that had the best argument for that.
Yeah.
Why do you think sometimes it's always going in the direction it is, which to me seems like the SEC more than giving a few other chances for other teams around the country to get a host?
Yeah, it's just a weird thing. I think a lot of it still has to do with money. You know, they can make a lot more money putting a regional in Tennessee or Vanderbilt instead of at Georgia Tech. I think that's kind of part of it. A few years ago, the NCAA selection chairman, I can't remember which one it was, but he said that money doesn't really matter anymore. They're making good money off the NCAA tournament, so they're putting regionals in places that, you know, might not make as much money. And they kind of did that. Like last year at Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara, I was at that regional. That's a small stadium. It's like, I think they wedged in about 1,800 people there for games, but it's a small stadium. But this time, yeah, they seem to kind of shake their moneymaker a little bit. Not that you couldn't make good money at a TCU region or Georgia Tech, but you can make a little bit more. You can make a little bit more in an SEC environment. But I will say this, though, Ross. The SEC also had, like in RPI rankings, they had Alabama at 13 and Florida. Actually, I'm looking at now, Florida 17 ahead of TCU. So they could have put regionals in those 2 places as well and didn't. So I was kind of glad that it turned out that way, because they really could have given the SEC almost all their teams home regionals, and they didn't. They didn't pull the gun out for that one. Luckily, they didn't use it. But interesting way and interesting. It's always interesting when it comes to the bubble, when it comes to home regionals, because playing at home is such a huge advantage.
Well, thank God they didn't do that. They already got enough regionals in the SEC. 2 more quick ones for you. Is there a lower seed that could be a sleeper to make it all the way to Omaha that you like?
I've kind of said going into the NCAA tournament, or before the selection came out, Arizona was one that I thought wasn't going to be a number 1 seed to watch out for. I thought UC Irvine was another number 1 or non-number 1 seed to watch for, and they got sent out here to UCLA, and I'm going to be at that regional. I just think UC Irvine pitches so well, and this year they've got, we might have talked about it before, but they've got an offense that looks like, dare I say, looks kind of like an SEC offense with a lot of linebackers going up there to the plate. So I kind of thought those 2 teams as 2 seeds would be some of the one of the more dangerous teams in the country. And if you want to go down to even 3 seeds, this might be a little bit of a homer call, but I do like Nebraska. I do like Nebraska as a 3 seed, just the way they played this past week, if they can keep that going. And if you're a dreamer, you'd like to see those Creighton Blue Jays get out of Arkansas. I don't know that they will, but I would love to see them. And one more 3 seed I really kind of like was seeing the University of Cincinnati this past week at the Big 12 tournament. Just the way they steal bases like crazy. They got their batting order is really solid. Their pitching is surprisingly good, and Tennessee is where they're heading. And Tennessee kind of been a little hither and yon in the past few weeks of the season. So watch out for Cincinnati. I think they've got a legit chance to break some hearts out there too.
Well, I was going to ask you where you were going to be going, but I honestly, I would have played a game. If you would have said, Ross, can you guess where I am going? I would have said, I'm guessing you're going to the UCLA regional, because that is the Eric Sorensen special with 3 California teams and a team from an Arizona State. I mean, that has got your name written all over it, doesn't it?
Well, it does. And for another reason, Ross, I don't like heat. I don't like going anywhere that's hot, which is, I'm a baseball writer, which is a stupid occupation to get into when you don't like heat. But UCLA, Oregon, and Oregon State were going to be my 3 choices, obviously. And hopefully next week, my thinking is next week, I'm hoping one of the Oregon schools survives and hosts a super regional, because I always love going up there for regionals because the weather's so great and so comfortable before I get to Omaha and melt my face off in the photo wells there. But yes, I will be staying local, and it'll be nice, cool, comfortable temperatures out there in Westwood. You did have me laughing throughout the Big 12 tournament when they announced that they were going to be moving it to Arizona, and you kept giving us a weather update. That was fantastic. Thank you. I didn't understand that one. It must be a money thing, but God, that bums me out. The Big 12 tournament is so great, played at a major league stadium, and it's indoors, of course, but God, I loved covering that tournament. And I do not plan on going to surprise Arizona with triple-digit heat next year to cover the Big 12. Understandable. Eric Sorensen, D1 Baseball. Eric, thank you so much, my friend. Have a good time there in UCLA, and we'll catch up soon. You got it, Ross. Thanks for sharing the airwaves, man. Once again, great stuff there with Eric Sorensen of D1 Baseball. All right, we're going to get to a break. When we come back, we are going to wrap up the show with some final thoughts on some things. Give you an update from State Track, as we've got a few area athletes already finishing up some events. So we'll get to all that coming up in just a little bit. You're listening to the Morning Blitz here on a Friday.
If you have a lot of shopping to do for summer, then you're actually in luck. Because at Macy's, the latest designer trends are here now. From swim and sandals to match sets and linen suits, all for 20% off. But get this, spend $100 and get 25% off. Spend $200 and get 30% off. 30%. So the bigger your summer, the better. Because the more you buy, the more you save. But hurry, it all ends Sunday at Macy's. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
Get ready to rev your engines, because the Burlington Chamber of Commerce Celebration of Summer event is cruising into Palmer Park on June 14th in Burlington, Colorado. Vince's GM Center is back at it, hosting the car, truck, motorcycle, and antique tractor show. And registration is now open. There will be something for everyone, including a 5K pet-friendly run-walk, craft vendors, food vendors in a beer garden, live music, a cornhole tournament, and free swim at the Burlington Pool. For more information or to pre-register for the car show, visit vincesgmcenter.com. Join us for Celebration of Summer in Burlington on June 14th.
When it comes to keeping your vehicle running right, Kansas Land Tire in Goodland has you covered. From tires and alignments to oil changes, brakes, and batteries, their expert team does it all. Fast, friendly, and done right the first time. Need new tires? They carry all the top brands at competitive prices to keep you safe on the road year-round. Stop by Kansas Land Tire in Goodland today, where service is always a step ahead. Located in downtown Goodland, it's Kansas Land Tire, your trusted hometown team.
Big savings are waiting at Hurl Chevrolet GMC in Goodland, Kansas. Get a 25 Chevy Silverado 1500 with 0.9% APR for 60 months plus $3,500 trade-in cash. Or choose a 25 GMC Sierra 1500 Turbo Max, 0.9% APR, or up to over $7,800 off if you own a GMC or Buick. And don't forget, military members get an extra $750 cash allowance. It's happening now at Hurl Chevrolet GMC in Goodland, Kansas. Online at hurlchev.com.
Miss the weekend action?
Yes, you caught me.
No worries. We've got all the highlights and lowlights covered.
Hey, okay, well, catch me up.
This is the Morning Blitz with Russ Volkmer.
All right, as we make our way through here on wrapping up a show this Friday, I wanted to get to some results from the Acacia State Track and Field Championships. There are currently right now 5 events that are done. They're all the 2 miles. Shout out to Golden Plains' Elizabeth Weiner finishing in 5th place in the girls 1A. The boys 1A, Kendrick Selensky of Quinsker finishing in 8th place. He scores a point. His teammate Elliot Churchwell finishing in 9th place, so not far behind there. The girls 2A, Tegan Lindemann finishing in 9th for Hoxie. The boys 2A, Michael Hafner finishing in 6th place, getting on the podium there for Hoxie in that 2-mile race for the boys 2A. So yeah, and then I saw Emily Boehner. It looks like, once again, it's not official yet, but it looks like as if she's going to win the girls' high jump. I believe in 2A. We'll see. That's not a final for sure on that, but it looks like she might be your gold medal winner in the girls 2A. Hoxie's Emily Boehner in the high jump. But like I said, that's just a handful of 131 different events qualifying for the state track meet here in the year of 2025. Before we get out of here, I want to highlight a couple quick things here. The New York Knicks able to extend the Eastern Conference Finals with a win last night over the Pacers in New York, 111-94. Once again, if you're Indiana, you look at it like, well, we're going to give it a shot. It's not going to be our night. That's okay. We'll go back home in game number 6 and hopefully take it there. Now, it really gets interesting if it gets to a game 7. They got to go back to New York. That's when things will get interesting, but I don't know. I feel like the Pacers should be able to get that done. I think it's tomorrow night on Saturdays when that will wrap up. I would assume the Eastern Conference Finals. Let's see what else to get to. We talked about the Women's College World Series right off the bat. Yesterday, winners were, of course, Oregon and Oklahoma UCLA and Oklahoma in walk-off fashion. Texas was a winner, I believe, yesterday, and so was Texas Tech. Texas Tech is an interesting story. That was a program that really didn't have a lot of softball success, but they went out and spent a lot of money and paid Nigeri Kennedy, who's originally from Topeka, to come back from Stanford to pitch there. And she's out there pitching shutouts, one of the hardest pitchers to hit, and they're winning a lot of games. And so money will buy you stuff, as Texas Tech is proving right now in the Women's College World Series. In the Stanley Cup Finals are set. Edmonton and Florida for the second year in a row. It'll be the Oilers and the Panthers facing off. Last year, of course, the Panthers get the Stanley Cup championship. We'll see if Edmonton can get it done in round number 2. And of course, once again, college baseball regionals begin today. Kansas will take on Creighton in the first round today. They're in Fayetteville, Arkansas. K-State will take on UTSA. That's University of Texas in San Antonio. That'll be once again in Austin at the Texas Regional. And then Nebraska and Chapel Hill, North Carolina, they will square off with Oklahoma here this afternoon. Once again, all those games, if you'd like to watch that, will be on ESPN+. Then on ESPN, of course, you can watch the elimination games of the Women's College World Series. So, like I said, busy sports weekend and a fun one as well.
And back lifts his ball deep to right. How about a walk-off Gray? Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on to New England. They win it on the first play of overtime. Mahomes swings it. It's there. Hardman. Jackpot. Kansas City.
So the NFL players are starting to talk a little bit more about their chances of possibly representing the U.S. in the Olympics as part of flag football. Now there's starting to be like a rift between NFL players and, of course, the official United States flag football team that competes. It's their kind of profession. And anyway, there's been lots of talk about this, including Jason Kelsey is saying that, hey, if the U.S. flag football team is scared, why don't they just compete for spots against NFL players? And if they're better, they'll beat them. Because flag football players think it's a completely different game than the NFL, which that might be true. They might beat them in that. But I tell you, one person I saw had a great idea, and I back it up. Why not make it a Pro Bowl deal? Have the NFL be one flag football team, and then the USA flag football team, which is not made up of pro players at this point in time, have them compete against each other, and the winner gets to represent the U.S. in the Olympics. That would be a great idea to help the Pro Bowl out because it stinks. But that'd be a great, great thing. On top of this, media was asking Patrick Mahomes about if he wants to play in the flag football Olympics in 2028. And he goes, I think I'm going to leave that for the younger guys. It's 3 years from now. I'm going to be a little bit older. I think I'm going to leave that for the younger guys. So it sounds like no Patty Mahomes when it comes to flag football at the Olympics for him. But anyway, Once again, full weekend of sports ahead. Hope everyone has a good weekend. Enjoy the beautiful weather. Don't forget Royals and Rockies on the radio waves of NWKS Radio here all weekend. Colorado is in New York to take on the Mets. The Royals are at home, a huge AL Central Division series against the Tigers. So tune in and catch those games on KLOE or 790 KXXX. We'll be back in the month of June. We'll talk to you on Monday. Have a good weekend. It's been the Blitz.
Classic rock plays here. This is Rocket 102.5 KKCI Good.